Over these last few weeks, we've been touching on the question, who does Jesus say that I am? And come to the descriptions: I'm a child of God, I'm a fruit bearer, and I'm a friend of Jesus. But beyond simply the one question, for me, who does Jesus say that I am? Who does Jesus say we are together? When we're together, who are we? As we're turning towards the thoughts and wondering of what it means to be church just now in these COVID-19 days when so much has changed, about how we live together, how we follow Jesus together, that question presses upon me. Who are we as the church of God together, the people of God together, as we think about and plan towards the new forms of gathering, of worship, of ways to follow Jesus? How do we make disciples, be the people of God's kingdom here? What does it look like when all these ways of being together feel so different? And so I turn to Matthew's Gospel and to Jesus' words in chapter 5 as he's out on the hillside and he's speaking to those who follow him. And he shares on the beatitudes and he then comes to these words: "You're the salt of the earth. If the salt loses its flavour, how shall it be seasoned? It is then good for nothing but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men." Matthew 5:13. You're the salt of the earth. You yourselves together, you're the salt of the earth. This is who we are together, Jesus says. You're the salt of the earth. That's how he describes us. And I'm going to take a key to this. There is too much to go into in these few moments together, but I want to take a key on this. There is a strong thread of interpretation that takes salt to equate to wisdom. And when Jesus uses that word salt, he's speaking of us as being the wisdom of the world, the wisdom of the earth. You are where wisdom resides in the world. Shocking, I know. And he goes on to say, but if this turns to foolishness, then what is the point? So the key is, how are we wise? I want to stick with that description, move it forward a bit. What does it mean to be wise now, under the conditions and constraints of COVID-19? What does that look like? How do we live as the salt of the earth? Jesus describes us like this straight after the Beatitudes. So it's wise, maybe, to tie up the description back to what Jesus is saying there. And I want to pick up on just one of the Beatitudes to begin to model what it might be, to think about this, to explore more widely in the Beatitudes. If we're to be salt now, what does that look like? Jesus says, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." And here I'm caught by that sense of the wisdom of mourning. Speaking and listening to who has been lost and what has been lost across this time. To name the people lost and to name what we feel is lost is part of the wisdom of this moment, part of what it is to be salt. This probably isn't the right form to mourn over recent loss, over the last few weeks of those we have known. So I turn towards the things that I mourn over and begin to name them. I mourn over easily being with one another and being without the fear and the anxiety of meeting. I mourn over the lines we need to draw around ourselves and around each other to have any possibility of meeting up. I mourn over the loss of hearing one another and sharing with one another without this screen and camera between us. There are many other things to mourn. There are also new good things to explore in this. But if we are to be the salt of the earth, then these moments taken to name where we are mourning seem to me to matter. This wisdom of mourning is only one part of the Beatitudes brought into this moment of COVID-19. To be the salt of the earth means we take up the words of Jesus in the Beatitudes and ask, what does that look like now? Here is one moment in that task. To be salt in this world carries the willingness to name what we mourn, and then to await God's blessing in naming that mourning for this time, for us, for each other, and for the wider community. We are to be the salt, to name the mourning. Amen.